Thank you. Well, welcome. I'm Mary Amlaw. This is the Liberty Tea Party Patriots. Who's new here tonight? Who's brand new? Never been here? Raise your hand. I think that's just great. It's never too late. Never too late to get involved and find out what's going on. And this is a safe place to come. For those of you who are new, and as a review for the rest of us, here's what we do every month that we've been doing for about 19 years. Liberty Tea Party Patriots is the first and the longest running Tea Party group in the state of Minnesota. This group formed in March of 2009, and it was the first of 59 statewide Tea Party Patriot groups that formed by 2011. How many of you were in one of those original Tea Party groups? Yeah, isn't that something? We're here to educate, motivate, and activate as part of the current Tea Party movement that stands against an out-of-control federal government of unconstitutional spending and taxation. We're an affiliate of the National Tea Party Patriots organization that was started in Georgia way back when, and it is a trademark name. The national organization defined who we are and what we can do to reclaim the country that our founders envisioned. Tea Party Patriots is the organization that defined the 3 core principles that are our guide for who and what to vote for. It's a guide for our policymakers at all levels to secure a liberty-based society. Number 1 is limited constitutional government so that we may have personal freedom. 2 is free market economics, so we have economic freedom and prosperity. And 3rd is financial responsibility, so we have a debt-free future. I want you to take a brochure on your way out, so when you're talking to a neighbor or a family member and they call you a nasty name, all you have to do is just hand them the brochure and let the brochure do the talking. They come away with a complete understanding of what we're doing. The people helping us here tonight at the monthly meeting is in this marvelous location. Jason Tullett is the owner of the tavern. We just want to thank him so much for opening the doors and allowing us to be here. It's a lot of business. Alex Erickson is the banquets and events manager, but every meeting we have the manager at night here, Jeremy. Jeremy, you're fantastic. I don't know if he's in here or not, but he helps with all of the technology, and he does all the setup for us. We appreciate it. Our server, Sean, is the nice young guy back there that takes your ticket. Jackie Heinen, you greet everybody at the door, and we so appreciate that. Travis Ebaum brings this gorgeous flag every month. Isn't this fabulous? And, oh, there's Jeremy. Where did Mo go? I was just going to introduce Mo, our bartender. So, so thanks so much. We are supporting a local business, and your food and beverage orders in this banquet room tonight are needed in order for us to keep this going, which is really great. We always begin the meeting with an invocation, and I want to bring up Alan Chen. Alan, come on up here. He is a House Rep 40B candidate, and he's going to lead us in the invocation.
Do I step up? Okay, thank you, Mary. Thank you for the introduction. So, again, my name's Alan Shin. I just stepped into the House 40B race, and part of the reason is because after the mob stormed the church I go to, yes, that's my church, so that's like a line too far for me. So I realized that, and I'll say a few things. I'm not very good at this, so I'll just give it a try. So let us bow our heads. Heavenly Father, we thank you for another day to gather together, and we know that you're the light, you're the wisdom, and you're the hope for this state and this city. And I want to pray for all the candidates, all the patriots fighting for Minnesota, as we have recognized that this is no longer a battle between the right and the left. This is the battle between God and Satan. And we just ask you to bless all of our candidates to win in this fight against the devil who's fighting in your glory. And in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you. That was really good.
I actually wasn't there, but I saw it.
And to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, we have retired Navy Lieutenant Commander Phill Parish. Please stand.
Please uncover. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Has everybody taken part in the straw poll?
Yes.
Good. We decided we would do something with those leftover ballots from Tuesday night.
Give them to Steve Simon.
Yeah. Well, we thought that would be good. So we'll have those results in a little bit. I do want to tell you, some people have said, Mary, where did you get that scarf? I'm going to fall off this thing.
Careful.
Well, as you all know, every year I go down to Clear Lake, Iowa. They have an annual event called the Buddy Holly Winter Dance. As you know, on February 3rd, 1959, there was the plane crash. After Buddy Holly, the Big Bopper, and Richie Valens played, along with Waylon Jennings. He was a guitarist for the Crickets back then. They all played at the Surf Ballroom. Buddy Holly said, I'm not taking another 9-hour cold bus ride up to Moorhead for another concert, so he chartered a private plane. Unfortunately, the pilot that they had piloting was not instrument qualified, and he basically flew the plane into the ground about 3 minutes after takeoff. We lost 3 big stars. My brother always said Buddy Holly would have been bigger than Elvis. Very talented guy. The only one that had a chart song in the top 10 that night was Richie Valens. You know, he was famous for La Bamba, but O'Donna had charted at number 3. He was 17 years old. Buddy Holly was 22, the Big Bopper. Chantilly Lace, everybody knows that song, he was 28. The plane, you could hardly recognize it. In about 1979, there was a local DJ by the name of the Mad Hatter who decided that every year Clear Lake should, at that Surf Ballroom, have an annual event called the Winter Dance. And so it's been going on since 1979, and I've been attending every year for 10 years. I go down by myself. Anybody can come along. It's affordable. You have 3 nights where you can just be a teeny bopper again.
Be young again.
And they had everybody down there again. They get, as you know, Bobby V, was 15 years old with his brother up in Moorhead, Fargo area back then. And he was had a band called The Shadows. They made it up that night. But with Buddy and all those headliners not showing up that night for the concert, they asked over the radio station if a local band would step up. They were a garage band. They stepped up and said, yeah, we're The Shadows, 15 and 17 years old. That's how Bobby V got his start. So now his sons, his grandsons, and his nephew have a band called the Killer V's, and they show up at the Surf Ballroom every year too, and you've never heard better guitar playing in your life. But the number one band this last 3 nights was the Drifters, the original Drifters. They were old, and they can outdance and outsing than all of us. They came out, they were the slickest show I've ever seen in my life. Great music, tuxedos, they danced in unison, the whole bit. And then Jay and the Americans came out. Caramia. Let's lock the door and throw away the key now, la la la. Remember them? Only in America. So these old geezers are out there now too, but they got a 3rd J. There's been 3 J's. But they had a table selling their CDs and this. And from the stage, they talked about how much they love America. We need to support our law enforcement. And they God blessed everybody. So I had to buy one of these. I wish I could have bought one for everybody, but they were 25 bucks each. So. But I imagine if you go and look up Jay and the Americans, you might be able to buy this on their website. Pardon?
That was an infomercial, right?
Pardon?
I said that was the infomercial for them, right?
That was the infomercial for them. Not necessarily, the CD was pretty lousy quality, but they have a nice, they've got a nice scarf, but I really like it a lot. All right, how many of you went to caucus the other night? Good. Excellent. How many of you became delegates? Okay. How about precinct chairs? How many of you? Yeah, all of us. Wonderful. This is a great turnout. We need to do this. So caucus is a big deal. It happens every 2 years. And then what do you do after that? Well, we have to get involved in our BPOU. So we have Stan Hamilton here, who is actually the chair of CD3. And you put together a video and some information to help your new delegates and new volunteers to get active, to get out the vote. So let's welcome Stan. He's going to do about a 6-minute update on what they're doing.
Thank you, Mary, for allowing me to appear. Yes, my name is Stan Hamilton, and I am the chair of CD3. We have a strategic plan at CD3, and we are focused on it. We have 4 tactics that we're working on right now. One is outreach to the minority community. We're working really hard at that. We're going to have an exciting event coming up at the end of February in that regard. We are working harder than we've ever done before to raise money, and we want to make sure that all of our 27 House and Senate, State House and State Senate candidates get a donation from CD3. It'll at least be $1,000. We hope it's more. We're working hard at raising the money. We're working and we're struggling at messaging. One of our planks, the third, is messaging to try and appeal to swing voters. We're still working on that thing. And the last plank is get out the vote. We put together and played it at our precinct caucuses this past Tuesday night, this little video, and it's 3.5 minutes long. I'm going to play it. Then I'm going to ask all of you to vote to nominate it for an Oscar. And then I'll come back and I'll just talk to you about what maybe you could do to help us get out the vote. So, Jeremy, you want to kick it off?
Of the 3rd Congressional District for Republicans, basically the northwest, west, and southwest suburbs of Minneapolis. The reason I'm doing this work is to try and make a difference to benefit Minnesota, and specifically to make a benefit for my grandchildren. I got 2 of them here right now. You got girls want to say hi? Hi. Okay, thank you, girls. We have a lot to accomplish here tonight, and your presence is so important. Before we begin with some of the necessary and official duties of the evening, please let me call to your attention the fact that more GOP voters turn out in a presidential election year than turn out in a non-presidential election year. If we are to win Minnesota elections on November 3rd, 2026, a non-presidential year, we must get all Republicans to vote. This is where you come into the picture. We are asking each of you to consider becoming a precinct champion or volunteer within your precinct. If we can get just 5 champions, beginning with you here tonight, for each precinct across CD3, we will then provide that champion with about 30 names of low propensity Republican voters that live in your backyard. You, as our champion, would then have about 6 months to reach out to them, asking them to make a plan to vote. We will provide you with actionable tools to help, and you will be meeting fellow Republicans in your neighborhood. But I don't want you to just take my word for it. I would like you to hear from several other residents of CD3.
Hi everyone, I'm Andrew Myers and I live in CD3.
Hello, my name is Danny Nadeau and I live in CD3.
My name is Warren Limmer and I live in CD3.
Hi, my name is Jimmy Engler and I live in CD3.
Hi, my name is Jude and I live in CD3.
Hi, my name is Ryan Wilson and I live in CD3.
Hi, my name is Patrick Knight and I live in CD3. Hi, my name is Kristen Robbins, and I live in CD3.
Hello, my name is Brad Kohler, and I live in CD3.
Hi, my name is Ron Schultz, and I live in CD3.
Hello, I'm Kendall Qualls, and I live in CD3.
Hi, my name is Chris Meadow, and I live in CD3. We are asking for help from each of you
to become a precinct champion
that will, in turn,
reach out to GOP voters in your backyard,
explaining the importance of their vote.
In November of 2026,
together, and with your help,
we will win in 2026
and return Minnesota to a place
of balance and common sense.
Thank you for considering this important role. So, please sign up tonight. Thank you.
I'm hoping that my granddaughters get nominated for Best Actress. I'll only take another moment. There is a yellow piece of paper on your table. I put 2 on each table. The QR code will take you to the video that you just saw, because I know you're going to want to watch that 2 or 3 more times. But the bottom of that form would be if you would like to help us in the Get Out the Vote effort. Please fill it out. I'll walk around and grab them. I will tell you that in CD3, we identified there are 40,000 Republicans that voted in 2024 that did not vote in 2022. Of those 40,000 Republicans, we believe we have the names, phone numbers, addresses for about 22,000 of those 40. It's those 22,000 Republican low propensity voters that we are going to try and reach out and talk to each one of them between now and, let's say, September, October, encouraging them to make a plan to vote. And if you would like to help us, fill out the bottom part of that page and I'll collect them. Thank you for listening, and Mary, thank you for allowing me to get the forum tonight. Take care. Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, if you're in a different district, if you're in a different BPOU that's not within CD3 and you find this to be of interest, I mean, the data sort that we did, we used Buzz 360 to identify, well, the Secretary of State will tell you who voted as a Republican in the 2 different years. Then we went into Buzz 360 and we did some filtering to find those 22,000 names. We're going to try and break those into lists of 20 to 30 people and get them to our volunteers. And if it's an effort that you would want to try in your BPOU or in your CD, that I'll tell you what we did and how it works. So you can go to CD3 GOP and you can see my name there and phone number and email. So just reach out to me. I'll try to help.
Thank you, Stan. Thank you for all your help. So how many of you would like to hear what the straw poll results were from Tuesday night? Richard, this is statewide now. It took a couple days for all the BPOUs to submit their individual totals. Oops, I can't get this going here. Write-ins were 56. We don't know who they were. I did see David Hand listed in my BPOU. David Hand is a former state chair, but he's actually running for U.S. Senate. But he was written in. John Kern, I believe his name is, he got 59. Raul Estrada, who has a Facebook campaign going on, he got 62. Brad Kohler, 78. Peggy Bennett, 112. Jeff Johnson, 139. Patrick Knight, 362. Phill Parish, 728. Kristen Robbins, 776. Undecided was 1,046. That's a good number. Good size number. And of course, they don't indicate why they're undecided. But I mean, a lot of people showed up for the first time wanting to learn more about the candidates. Scott Jensen, 1,185. Mike Lindell, 3,235. Kendall Qualls was 4,624. Lisa DeMuth was 5,827. You can go to the MNGOP website, it's mngop.org, and you'll be able to see the results listed there. We're going to start out tonight with Frank Long. Frank, do you want to come up with your flyer? We've got a moment here for you to tell us about your PAX chili cook-off, and you've got some really interesting entrants for the chili, cooking up their best.
Oh, that's going to be good.
Some of them are sitting.
Yes, we do. We have everyone preparing or serving chili is going to be a statewide candidate. And let me read those off for you. In the Minnesota governor's race, we've got Peggy Bennett, Lisa DeMuth, yeah, I do that every time, and she gets mad at me. Patrick Knight, Phill Parish, Kendall Qualls, and Kristen Robbins. For the U.S. Senate race, we'll have Adam Schwarzy, Michelle Tafoya, and Mark York. For the Minnesota Attorney General, we'll have Ron Schultz. He says his is in the freezer. He's thawing it out tomorrow. That's the smartest thing to do. Chili's always good after you thaw it. The Secretary of State, we've got Wendy Phillips. And then for State Auditor, we've got Elliot Engen and Nate George are going to have that. So this is going to be a chili straw poll. We do a people's choice. So you can go around and pick whichever chili. We also have a judging panel to make sure that bad chili doesn't win. It's happened with the people's choice before. So for our judges, we'll have A.K. Kamara, we'll have Harry Niska, we'll have Walter Hudson, we'll have Anna Matthews, and we'll have me. So yeah, I told you it's a celebrity panel. Anyway, so yeah, it's $25 if you early do it. You can take the picture; it'll take you right there. $30 at the door. It's a fundraiser. The Conservative American PAC does a lot of work, especially in swing districts during elections, where we go out and help people, and we say things that candidates really shouldn't. There's a lot of value in what we do. So if you guys come out and support us, it's going to be a great time through a great cause. So thank you so much.
What time and where?
It's on the flyer. So it's going to be in Chanhassen, and if you think that's too far to drive, I've driven to Thief River Falls to pay $200 for a chicken dinner, so you get no sympathy. It's from noon to 4, and where else are you going to find a 4-hour meet and greet with all these candidates where you get fed? This is a deal. So we'll see you there. Thank you.
It's very fun. On April 25th, the Child Protection League is having Laura Logan and Liz Collin. They were going to be talking about a number of child protection type issues and topics. And Cindy Matthew is over there in the corner. Raise your hand, Cindy. If you want to know more information about this on April 25th, where it is, how much it is, just stop by and see her. But this is what the flyer looks like. I don't know if there's one on your table or not, but this is well worth going to too. Just to support this organization. Gosh, they've done some good work over the years. Also, Michelle Bachmann will be at the Living Word Christian Center in Brooklyn Park this Wednesday, the 11th at 7 p.m. I suggest you show up early. There is parking all around the church, but it's going to be a busy place. Yep, we got her in. How about that, Lorraine? I'm going to start introducing the candidates. I first want to introduce to you a wonderful candidate for Attorney General, Ron Schultz.
Thank you, Mary. Another round of applause. She does such a fabulous job. So my wife whispered in my ear to make sure to tell everyone that my chili, or our chili, is made with elk meat, okay? Oh. Elk meat. And it's an elk that I shot in Colorado, 325 yards on a dead run, one shot, okay? So you've got to eat that. So again, I'm Ron Schultz, and I'm running for Attorney General because Minnesota deserves a real lawyer as its attorney general. Not a left-wing career politician who is soft on crime, who has turned a blind eye to the massive fraud that permeates our state government, who is a charter member of the anti-police movement, and who thinks it's just fine fine if biological males play on girls' sports teams. That guy needs to go, and I need your help in making sure that that happens. I put some information out on some of the tables, and we've got flyers over here where you can learn a little bit more about me. You know, the 30-second bio is I grew up on a dairy farm in southwestern Minnesota, married my high school sweetheart Janet over here, went to college on an Army ROTC scholarship, went to the University of Minnesota Law School, served 4 years in the United States Army Judge Advocate General's Corps. How many of you here have seen the movie A Few Good Men with Tom Cruise? Okay. Tom Cruise played me in that movie. Okay? Played me. So that's where only he wore a Navy uniform and I wore an Army uniform. Spent my post-military career in private law practice, where I was at a large law firm in downtown Minneapolis from 2019 to 2024. I was the chairman of that law firm. Again, you can go on our website. I've won a lot of awards. I'm on the Forbes list of the top 200 lawyers in America. So I've got the credentials and I've got the experience to run the Attorney General's office.
Amen.
But here is what the most important thing is about this election, and Stan Hamilton talked about this. It is voter turnout. If anybody tells you that Minnesota is a blue state, that's crap. That's crap. We have 4 of 8 congressional seats are Republican. We have a tie in our Minnesota State House of Representatives. And if you want to slice the data just a little more, in the last election, if you look at everybody in the state who voted for a Democrat for State House, and you look at everybody who voted for a Republican in the State House, the Democrats, it was only 14,000 more votes. There are 4,000 precincts in this state. That's 4 votes in a precinct. We do not need to get that many more people out to make a huge difference, but we've got to get them out. We have a drop-off every year between presidential election and off-year election. And that's the difference between winning and losing. And that's just going to require a lot of work on our part. And I want to talk about the latest entrant in the governor's race on the DFL side. You may have heard of her. Her name is Amy something. Every year that she has run, her margin of victory keeps going down, okay? And she has not had a hard race. So when anybody tells you, oh, Amy's in the race, that's going to make it hard for us, baloney. We can beat Amy Klobuchar. She is not as popular as people think she is, and she's an unrepentant liberal. She may walk around this state, and people may think that she's a moderate. All you've got to do is look at her voting record, okay? And we're going to tag her with the voting record, and we're going to tag her with the fraud. So Mary's going to give me the hook here because we've got a lot of other people to talk to. One final thing, please go to my website, Ron, for mnag.com, RONFORMNAG.com. Sign up on that website, go to the link for X and Facebook, and follow me on X and like me on Facebook. Okay, thank you very much.
And running for governor, Phill Parish.
Amen.
7 minutes. Okay, you're going to keep track of me. Okay. All right, now this is an awesome crowd. Can you see me all the way back there in the red shirt? All right, you got a thumbs up. I'm Phill Parish. I'm running for governor. I was born and raised here in Minnesota. I was born in Blue Earth, Minnesota. Anybody from Blue Earth? I grew up in West Concord. I graduated from school in West Concord, Minnesota. Went to college in Mankato. Became a teacher. Mankato's a really wonderful place, despite the knucklehead in the office. But I graduated and became a teacher. I taught school for 13 years. I started my principal's license, became a principal, director of education at Girard Treatment Programs in Austin, Minnesota, specializing in emotional behavioral disorders. I fit right in. So in the midst of that, I had joined the Navy Reserve. I was supposed to be a reservist, and I was an intelligence specialist. As an intelligence specialist, I was deployed multiple times, and all of a sudden, my Navy career took over my life. And just under 10 years later, I accepted a direct commission as an intelligence officer, and I retired as Lieutenant Commander, Phill Parish, United States Navy Intelligence Officer. Thank you. I was overseas for 11 years on active duty. I am one of the original whistleblowers of the daycare fraud. My last tour of duty was with Special Forces out of Fort Bragg. And we did a special task force that was following the money, trying to find out where they're getting money from, where is it going to, what are they buying, who's doing the weapons purchases, who's moving the weapons, and who's actually killing people. Our job was to create a package, a target package, that no kidding could stand up in a court of law and say, this is the bad guy and gal, and that's who we're going to prosecute. And we were very, very good at our job. We noticed a little pattern. Some of you know the punchline already, because some of you know me in this room. The pattern led back to guess where? Minnesota. And when we were telling people that hundreds of millions of dollars were coming in and out of the international airport in Minneapolis, oh, Commander, that can't be. Just an analytical story. Yeah, here's some imagery, sir, ma'am, of this cornfield. You know this daycare that's listed in this LLC here? There is no building in the middle of that cornfield. In fact, that address doesn't even exist. And neither are there any kids, and so on and so forth. Fast forward, you can imagine what my colleagues were telling people over 10 years ago was more than true, and it was only a portion of the story. And if you haven't heard about the daycare fraud and how bad it is in Minnesota at this point, please, I am begging you to do a little bit of research, please. It is much worse than what's even being talked about still. And we're talking about $9 billion, that's a safe estimate. Really is, because people don't like being embarrassed by saying willy-nilly numbers. All that being said, let's get down to some business. Why me? I'd like you to take some time to pick up the pamphlet or grab the one off the table. Where am I at, Mary? 3 minutes. Get to the website and get to the substance of what's going on. I really need you to dig into the substance, because this is not going to be about me. This is not going to be about any one of us good candidates. This is going to be about you and the 3.7 million voters in Minnesota. Some estimate at 4.3 million legally registered. I would suggest to you that about 1.2 million of those people are illegal or not supposed to be on there, or dead, or multiple registrations. It's a fact. It's not a lie. It's not hyperbole. It's a fact. That it's about the 3.7 million voters in Minnesota that need to show up, especially the 1.7 million Christians that are so upset with both parties that they just stay home. 1.7 million Christians can completely change the face of Minnesota. I'm going to leave you with this personal story, because I could go on all night. And by the way, I want to do a shout out to Mark. Mark and I had an awesome conversation before we all got started tonight. And we were really going to town. I wish we could have packaged that up and all of you could have heard that discussion. It could have been a radio show tonight. But well done, Mark, and thanks for being fired up, and thanks for being here. I'll tell you a personal story. I'd love to go on and on and on about all the plans, education, get the boys out of girls sports. It's all there. Here's what I want to share with you to try and motivate you. I've been on the road since April of last year. I've clocked in over 15,000 miles, over 100 individual events. I've literally met with tens of thousands of you. I want to share with you the truth. I'm here to report back to you like I'm your intelligence officer, okay? 80% of people in Minnesota don't want anything to do with us as Republicans. They don't want anything to do with Democrats, for sure. But what does that tell us as Republicans? What do we need to learn from that? And I'm telling you the truth. I'm not making up a story to get attention. 80% of Minnesotans don't want to be labeled. They want to be left alone. So I'm asking you to help me and help the rest of the candidates motivate people to get out to
get involved, get out to the vote. Great, great concept, well done. Get out and vote and get involved. Because 3.7 million, 17,000 people, 18,000 people showed up for caucuses on Tuesday. We should be ashamed, actually. There's nothing good news story there. I had to have a little fight with AK on the social media. And it's kind of embarrassing. Almost $2 million spent to get 18,000 people to show up at caucuses. We should be embarrassed. We can do better. So God bless you all. Thank you for being here. Get out there and fight. Fight, fight, fight. Okay? Go ahead.
Also running for governor.
I'm not trying to run away, but I have a radio program I got to get to.
Yeah, he's got to be up at 8. Thank you for being here. So Jeff Johnson, come on up here. You're running for governor too. I've gotten to know Jeff. He's an interesting guy. He's done a lot of things, but we have aeronautics in common, don't we?
Airline world's a small world.
Airline world all of a sudden becomes very, very small. But welcome, Jeff Johnson.
First of all, thanks for being here. I'm Jeff Johnson. I've been here a couple times. Mary, I've kind of lost track. First of all, thank you for all you do, and also for Stan. You guys are awesome. You guys are just instrumental in getting out the vote, and I think you're going to make a key difference in the elections here. So I'm Jeff Johnson. I'm not the Hennepin County Commissioner, Jeff Johnson. I'm from St. Cloud, Minnesota. I was the lone city council member back in 2017 that brought forward the refugee resettlement moratorium. Some of you may remember that. And it was extremely divisive. And at the time, Jody Harpstead was the LSS, the Lutheran Social Services president, who became the DHS commissioner under Walls about 2 years later. It's a classic case of, wow, let's make the fox in charge of the hen house. So anyway, I'm a real fighter, and one thing that's interesting about me, and they saw it on the council, is I don't like happy talk. I let people talk for a while. If we're going to talk in circles and things like that. Finally, I come to the point, and I'll just say, why is the king naked? And it makes some of my colleagues uncomfortable. I like to talk about real hard problems. Now, Mary, you mentioned Michelle Bachmann. Back in 2006, I believe, she got elected. I was the deputy chair for CD6. There was 4 candidates. There was Michelle, Jim Knobloch, Phil Krinke, and Jay Esme that ran. I was the deputy chair. I remember being at the endorsement convention. I wanted to make that process fair and as transparent and accessible as possible. So I gotta say, last Friday when I found out that delegates will be charged $250 to go to the state convention, I was very disappointed by that. Yep. It got discussed quite a bit at my caucus, and what I'm seeing is a lot of hardworking Minnesotans that really want to be there can't afford it. You talk about $250 just to get in. If you show up at the door, if it's late, it goes up to $299, and then $200 a night for a hotel. You're talking close to $800 to $1,000 for that weekend. It's almost becoming pay to play at those rates. I can guarantee you, when I was CD6 deputy chair, we were not charging that kind of money. It was maybe around 40 or 50 or something like that I recall. So things have radically changed. So that was of discussion quite a bit. Also, a couple other things. If you go to my website, just votejeffjohnson.us, votejeffjohnson.us. On there, you're going to see the very top that last January I was interviewed by FAIR, Federation for American Immigration Reform. Within 3 days, I had 70,000 hits. And it's a real short video, about a minute and a half, something like that. Talked about refugee resettlement, talked about how St. Cloud's been transformed. It's awful. I go all throughout the state like, oh, you're from St. Cloud? You know, I feel sorry for you or whatever. Our city has been transformed. It's turning into a third world country. Our university is down, St. Cloud State, by around 52%. The education buildings completely shut down. Fine arts, which is the nerve center of any university, shut down. 3 residence halls shut down. I have emails that go back 10 years to our legislators. 10 years to the higher committee. Nothing gets done. What frustrates me, folks, is a lot of good, well-meaning people get into these races. But I tell you, you got to have a spine, because if you're not careful, it will change you. Michelle Bachmann is a friend. I've kind of lost touch over the years. One thing about Michelle, she's come back from Congress pretty much relatively unscathed. Some people, I can't say that. They've turned into the swamp, and I'm talking about Republicans just as much as Democrats. In my case, I think I've told you, I'm a born-again Christian. I know why I'm there. I know why I'm in the city council. I was there for 8 years. And, you know, to go under body armor and police protection, to fight over refugee resettlement, all over $600 a month, I was really asking myself, is this worth it? But I thought, nope, you signed up for this gig. So I consider myself a political special forces fighter. The corruption in the state has become a stench, we all know that. I want to bring to your attention this little book. It's called PublicOfficialsBehavingBadly.com. PublicOfficialsBehavingBadly.com. It was written by retired police officer Sergeant Richard Stanek. He's lived in Carver County for years, and he actually wrote a book. I got about a third of the way through it. It's disheartening. We have a city council, we have a mayor, we have officials down there, corrupt, corrupt, corrupt. One of them had a DUI, and he also was charged with reckless driving, and I think assault or something like that. These are our leaders. And then we have Keith Ellison. Multiple police calls were made to the Ellison residents. I thought for a while maybe the police officers were serving as food dudes or something like that. It's incredible. You get what you vote for. We really do. I think this year it's going to be hopefully it'll be a watershed year. We have a change in the guard. We get a Republican there. It certainly may not be me that's okay, but we need someone in there that's godly, that's going to do the right thing, and we got to come together. As you know, Amy Klobuchar is pretty well financed. I was a bit surprised. The KSTP poll last week showed her around 50%. I thought she'd be up in the 60, 62, 65% range. That was not the case. That tells me she's vulnerable. She is. So this will be a key year. A couple other things, like I said, my name is Jeff Johnson, jack of all trades, master of nothing, from a farm southeast Minnesota. My wife's a family practice physician. And in fact, I said to her, after Mayor Kleist and I years ago, we went to see Klobuchar down in DC, quick story. It was a colossal waste of my time. I thought, good. I said to my wife, you know, I'm afraid that if you shone a light in Amy's ear, you'd see daylight. It was that bad. Well, Jeff, Mayor, you know, are you here for the, you know, are you having a good time here? Have you taken the tours of DC? Senator, we're not here for tours of DC. We're here to talk about St. Cloud and central Minnesota. It's like, I thought to myself, what have you been doing all these years in the Senate? And someone said, I think they're right. If we elect her again, you know, it's going to be basically it's a third term of Tim Walz if we have Amy Klobuchar back there. We need someone that's going to put these fires out. There's a dozen of them now, from fraud to our education scores are poor, and the list goes on. People fleeing the state. You better have someone in office here that's got some solutions. And whoever that governor candidate is, you know, whether it's me or someone else, we can't do it alone. We got to get godly men and women that love we the people and want to do the right thing. So don't be convinced that one person's going to fix all this. They're not. I think about out of time, right? Oh man, I love the airline world. My dad used to fly 747 of Northwest, New York to Tokyo. He was based out of Minneapolis for a while. And she probably even flew with my dad. So yeah, it goes on for hours on that. So thanks for your time. God bless you. I appreciate your time being here this evening.
All right, Minnesota, land of 10,000 frauds. That was a catchy title, wasn't it? We've had Representative Walter Hudson invited to go out to Congress. We have Representative Kristen Robbins as of today testifying in front of Congress. We'll have Senator Mark Koran next week. I'm going to wait till the podcast girls get set up. Here we go. American Experiment, we've had them here quite often over the years, and what an excellent organization, great research, great people. And we have Katherine Johnson and Grace Keating, and they do call themselves the Podcast Girls, but you have a weekly podcast. Well, I told her we were the generation that fought against that, being called Girls in Business. Remember that? They were the men and the girls, and we'd say, But now they're the Podcast Girls. We're so glad you're here, and I don't even know what you're going to present here tonight, but I'm so happy both of you are here. Welcome, Katherine and Grace.
Well, thank you so much, Mary. You're welcome. Yes. Is this on? Yes. Is it on? Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you again for inviting us to speak here tonight. Again, my name is Grace Keating. I work at Center of the American Experiment. We are Minnesota's think tank. We've been fighting for a more prosperous, better governed Minnesota all the way back since 1990. And I'm here, of course, with my wonderful colleague, Katherine Johnson. Together, we host the American Experiment podcast, which comes out every Tuesday. We are also launching a new legal and political podcast called Rationally Based, along with, I think, the only conservative law professor at the University of Minnesota, so that's a lot of fun. You should check it out sometime. We're also on the John Justice Show every other Friday for Freedom Friday, Friday Roundtables. You might have heard us there before. The reason we're here tonight is to take a fun little stroll, not so fun, walk down memory lane, looking at how Minnesota became, sadly known as the land of 10,000 frauds. We are no longer the state that works. We are no longer the cleanest, least corrupt state in the country. How did we get here? And where can we go from here? Does this look familiar to some of you? Now this is where we ended up, Quality Learning Center. But we are going to go all the way back to the beginning because, of course, Minnesota's fraud problem became a national story in the last few weeks. But dedicated people in Minnesota have been reporting and whistleblowing on the fraud problem since all the way back in 2018. Now, we are, I'm sure, going to leave things out of this fun little timeline that we put together for you because Minnesota's fraud is very, very widespread, but we consider these the greatest hits, if you will, of our fraud story.
All right, who remembers this from 2018? Some of you. You might remember it, like I did, but what I didn't realize is everyone was right. At the time, we saw this headline and we saw whistleblowers come out and talk about the fraud problem we had in Minnesota, and I think I was skeptical like everyone else. Now, hindsight is 2020. Everything they said was completely right. So in 2018, Fox 9 aired a story claiming $100 million had been stolen in child care fraud schemes. Kind of quaint now. Some of which allegedly was used to fund terrorist groups overseas like Al-Shabaab. Allegations primarily concerned the Child Care Assistance Child Care Assistance Program known as CCAP, a program to assist low-income parents with child care costs. One of the sources of the fraud allegations was former investigator Scott Stillman of the Minnesota Department of Human Services. In response to the Fox 9 report, the state Senate called him to testify. Thank you, Senator Koran. And he revealed quite a bit. He said that there was rampant fraud across not just CCAP, the child care program, but multiple programs in Minnesota. In his role, which the senator just told me before this actually doesn't exist anymore because they didn't want this information coming out. In his role, Scott analyzed digital evidence such as computers, cloud programs, cell phones, and he uncovered funds routed to foreign countries. He recounted tracking individuals overseas using their phones to communicate with compounds in the desert. They were sitting in places like Somalia, and they were filing reports to the DHS for government grants as if they were working at a daycare in Minnesota while they were literally sitting in a different country across the world. He said the discoveries that he made kept him and his fellow law enforcement officers up at night. He also detailed suspicious financial trails leading to terror groups via banks and informal Hawala groups, which we'll talk a little bit about later, which were networks in Somalia and beyond. He framed it as a national security issue, obviously, and thought people should clearly pay attention to what he had to say. The then DHS inspector, with the help of the Minnesota media, of course, worked overtime to discredit Mr. Stillman, and the DHS inspector at that time even spent $90,000 on a PR firm to make this guy look bad. So when we look at now, why are whistleblowers concerned about their names coming out, about people on either side knowing who they are? Just ask Scott and what happened to him. Many articles about Scott Stillman also featured quotes from someone accusing him and anyone concerned about fraud of, you guessed it, racism. I pulled these photos from an NPR article that quoted a Minneapolis child care center operator named Nasro Abshir. She said Republican attacks on providers based on isolated fraud cases are racist. Abshir and her fellow providers said that the CCAP program is actually underfunded. Okay, so just for fun, I popped her name into AmericanExperiment.org search engine, since she was the spokesperson that NPR was using at the time in 2018, and I thought, I wonder if anything came of her. Well, just a few years later, Nasro Abshir's voice would be heard on the infamous recording in Keith Ellison's office because her child care center turned into a free food site under the Feeding Our Future umbrella. So in 2018, she was calling people who cared about fraud racist. Not long after that, she had a Feeding Our Future fraud site. And I should add, she hasn't been charged. Later that year, a state investigative team confirmed that providers were able to successfully steal large sums of taxpayer money from CCAP and place just as much blame on the government and the state and the lack of internal controls as the fraudsters. DHS denied the credibility of these allegations by its own investigative unit, even though there had been successful prosecutions for fraud, and they called the program complex and asked for more money so it can hire an equity coordinator and develop culturally competent practices in our investigation process. I will say the next part of this timeline is a little heavy on Feeding Our Future. That is because the whole fraud investigation from here really stems from Feeding Our Future. In fact, Joe Thompson has said that roughly 24 or so of the Feeding Our Future defendants were also getting money from autism clinics. So that's how we learned about the autism fraud. So in February of 2021, the FBI notified the Minnesota Department of Education of allegations it received involving Feeding Our Future, all of which would later be reflected in the federal criminal charges to come. I think some people have wondered, how did they know? I mean, what tipped them off? And I think maybe they saw the Facebook page of Amy Bach, the executive director of Feeding Our Future. This is her boyfriend, Empress.
They're a nice couple.
That's a different Rolls Royce in each picture, okay? So that's a Rolls Royce and that's a Rolls Royce. And these were all over their social media. So I don't know, maybe that's how they found it. Somehow the state missed it. I'm not sure what they were looking at. But it's important to remember that the feds were the ones who notified the state that there were issues with Feeding Our Future, because to this day, Governor Walz and the Department of Education lie about this moment, claiming it was his administration that caught Feeding Our Future. Governor Walz said this in an op-ed for the Star Tribune just in December when the Department of Education noticed suspicious activity. It brought the fraudsters to court and lost. When they brought their concerns to the Trump administration, they were rebuffed. This is a lie. In reality, between June of 2018 and December of 2021, the Department of Education received at least 30 complaints about Feeding Our Future, and MDE did nothing until the feds stepped in and notified them about it. The other lie here is that a judge told MDE that they can't stop payments. You've probably all heard that. It's a complete lie. The judge actually said that the department has the power and the obligation to request additional documentation before authorizing future payment.
Speaking of liars, not long after this, Keith Ellison, our state's attorney general, had a private meeting with several individuals who we now know to be Feeding Our Future fraudsters, convicted fraudsters. This audio file did not come out until several years after this meeting took place. It was named as Exhibit 710 on the evidence list presented to the court by Amy Bach's attorney, but it was not entered into evidence officially during her 6-week trial, which resulted in her conviction on all 7 counts she faced in March 2025. In April 2025 is when American Experiment exclusively obtained this audio file and released it. It's 55 minutes long, so we're not going to play it for you tonight. But there are some bombshell moments in it. You can hear Keith Ellison pledging his support to individuals who would soon become his family's campaign donors. Several of the individuals heard on tape that same day and the next day made campaign contributions to Keith Ellison's son, Jeremiah Ellison, who was at the time running for Minneapolis City Council. You can hear several fraudulent nonprofits referenced by name, including Feeding Our Future, Safari Restaurant, Partners in Nutrition.
And you hear, again, as Catherine previewed earlier, many claims of state racism. That was the cause of this meeting. These fraudsters were claiming that they were being unfairly targeted by the state and having their legitimate businesses shut down because the state was racist. One man on the recording says that the state is unfairly going after, quote, communities of color. Heath Ellison says he's, quote, in the middle of a battle with the agencies right now. And that Governor Walz, quote, agrees that all this stupid, piddly stuff running people out of business is terrible. And all that is bad enough. Ellison pledging his support to future fraudsters in exchange for their financial contributions to his family is bad. What's worse is that everything he says on this recording flatly contradicts the public statements he was making a few months later, after the FBI had raided Feeding Our Future's offices, and people were asking Ellison, what have you been doing about this fraud? He claimed that his office had been investigating it for 2 years. In the recording, he says that this is the first that he is hearing of this struggle. Then we get to September of 2022. U.S. Attorney Andy Lugar announced the charges in Feeding Our Future, where he charged 47 individuals for stealing $250 million of our money. In June of 2024, we get to the Feeding Our Future trial, which, okay, it's my favorite thing of this whole story, okay? Do you guys remember the Hallmark bag of cash?
Yeah.
Because here in Minnesota, in the United States of America, someone dropped off a bag of $120,000 of cash to a juror in the trial to try and get them to decide that they were not guilty of fraud. You can't make it up. I mean, it's insane. My favorite part of the story, too, is that this woman, Ladan Ali, she's the one who delivered the bag. And she actually delivered $120,000 because she swiped $80,000 for herself, which is so good. I mean, like, just imagine when the other four found out and they were like, $120,000? That's not what we discussed. That's not how much I gave you. You can't make it up. There were some glimmers of hope briefly last year as fraud became more of a well-discussed issue in Minnesota. We finally saw some people at the Capitol realize that this wasn't reflecting well on their party. And so we had an excellent bipartisan bill that passed the Senate that would have created an Office of Inspector General that would have been actually empowered to go after fraud, stopping it before it happens, and investigating when there were fears that it was going on in either public or private entities that were receiving government funds. So it passed the Senate with bipartisan support. Great. Unfortunately, when it got to the House DFLers refused to pass it. To the chagrin of their GOP colleagues and even their DFL colleagues in the Senate. And these, by the way, are the same legislators that had refused to show up for work, just a few weeks earlier. So
all we needed was one vote.
One vote, yeah, it hurts. To this day, it hurts. So sadly, that bill was defeated by the House DFLers, yes.
The DFL.
Yes, please. Just a few months later, the then acting U.S. Attorney for Minnesota, Joe Thompson, revealed to the state that as more fraud was being unearthed outside of the free food space, so that's housing stabilization services, autism clinics, daycare sites, quality learning centers, they had started to realize that the free food fraud was just the tip of the iceberg. In a now famous interview with KSTP, Thompson said that Minnesota fraud could exceed $1 billion. It was not that long ago, folks, that people were freaking out over $100 million and $250 million. And sadly, even today, we have left the $1 billion number in the dust. And this is where you really start to see this story of fraud taking over Minnesota get legs and burst onto the national scene. In November, you see a City Journal article from Chris Rufo come out exposing, I suppose as he said, that money from Minnesota taxpayers is being stolen and ending up in the hands of terror groups overseas. Have you guys heard that before? Does it sound familiar to anyone in the room? Yes.
Not long after that, we had another bombshell revelation from Joe Thompson, who was then the first assistant U.S. attorney. And was still one of the lead prosecutors in Minnesota's fraud cases. At this press conference, which was in December 2025, he said, quote, half or more of the roughly $18 billion in federal funds that was supporting 14 Minnesota-run programs since 2018, not even a decade, may have been stolen. So if you've heard $9 billion lost to fraud in Minnesota, that is a conservative estimate, and this is where that number comes from. And it's important to remember that when you're thinking about the story of Minnesota's fraud, it started out as overbilling. And so you had initially legitimate nonprofits who were providing real services to real people just start to ask for more money than they needed to run these programs. And it snowballed from there, and people realized that they could commit fraud and get away with it, and no one was asking the proper questions. So that's where you started having completely fraudulent entities and nonprofits pop up that were providing no services to no Minnesotans, and were taking oodles and oodles of money for it. And I have to read this quote from AP News. This just cracks me up. So it's Thompson saying, the magnitude of the fraud is staggering. These are not just a few bad actors. And the dear AP, says, no, what he's saying, this might back up some of what President Donald Trump is saying about fraud going on in Minnesota. We can't confirm it yet, but this might lend some credibility to what he's saying, his crazy claims. In this same press conference is where we hear the term fraud tourism. Thompson tells us about two individuals, Anthony Waddle Jefferson and Lester Brown, who traveled to Minnesota from Philadelphia specifically to defraud our Housing Stabilization Services Program, which, contrary to what you might think, does not give people housing or provide services or stabilization. And of course, just a few weeks after that, we get Nick Shirley, the national YouTuber's infamous Quality Leering Center video on Nicolette Street. They couldn't spell anything right. And this is what really, really elevated Minnesota's fraud issue to the national stage. This is the boiling point. And of course, it was less than a week, maybe 2 weeks after the Quality Leering Center video drops, we have Governor Walz dropping out of the governor's race, ostensibly to focus on fighting Minnesota's fraud and not be distracted by campaigning. So, by that point, January 2025, the rest of the country has woken up to what is going on in Minnesota, what has been going on here since 2018 at the earliest. But do Minnesotans know what's going on? We in this room have been following it. We know what's been happening in the state that we love. But do the average Joe who doesn't really follow politics, do they know what's going on? And if they did know, do they care?
So at American Experiment, we do quarterly polls with a nationally renowned polling firm, and we poll Minnesotans. And the first thing we polled them on when it comes to fraud is their awareness. We found that the majority of Minnesotans are aware that there is a lot of fraud in state government, a good thing. And 27% were even able to name Feeding Our Future as an example of fraud in state government, which is actually a really high level of awareness for a poll like that.
And it's worth noting, all of this polling is pre-Quality Leering Center video. This is pre-Chris Rufo story. I would not be surprised if the numbers you're seeing right now have doubled since then.
Yeah, this was in September of last year. Then concern. The majority of respondents told us they are concerned about fraud in state government, with 38% being very concerned. Finally, blame. 50% of respondents say fraud will be a major factor in their vote for governor. Not only are Minnesotans aware of the fraud and concerned about fraud, half of our poll respondents said they were ready to hold someone accountable when they went and voted. This is my favorite one. We also poll right track, wrong track, and just look at how that moves. So March 2019, that would have been at the beginning of Walz's first term, 57% of Minnesotans believed the state was moving in the right direction. Widespread fraud is clearly moving things in the right direction, if you ask me. All right, what has been done? It's easy to get very doomer, gloomer when we think about Minnesota right now. It seems like there might not be any hope, but the truth is, there have been some good efforts to change the tide. The Justice Department has charged 98 people in these fraud schemes, and they've convicted 64, or they've pled guilty. 85 of the defendants are of Somali descent, of those charged. Governor Walz shut down the Housing and Stabilization Services Program, hooray, it was almost entirely fraud. The Minnesota DHS is recruiting nearly 200 people to help the agency conduct unannounced site checks of thousands of Medicaid providers, their own little army of Nick Shirleys, which I feel like they should have been doing before, but we'll take it. Lots of threats of federal funding being pulled. I have seen no evidence that that's really happening yet, but we can hope. And then also, Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent, has opened investigations into local money services. He is also requiring all money services, like the Somali Hawalas, located in Hennepin and Ramsey counties, to report additional information about transactions of $3,000 or more. This is crucial because this is how the money gets from our pockets as taxpayers to terrorist groups like Al-Shabaab. And it's not because Somalis in Minnesota are donating their money, giving their money to Al-Shabaab, but because Somalia doesn't have even a central banking system, parts of the country are run by Al-Shabaab, and therefore cuts are taken inevitably along the way. So in 2023 alone, the Somali diaspora sent back, this is in the whole country, $1.7 billion, more than the Somali government's budget for that year.
We want it back.
There you go. But, of course, the fight continues. We are still in the very early stages of fighting Minnesota's utterly pervasive fraud problem. We, of course, now have the Minnesota House Fraud Prevention and State Agency Oversight Policy Committee, aka the House Fraud Prevention Committee, which is chaired, of course, by Kristen Robbins, and they have set up a whistleblower tip line so that whistleblowers have a place to go and alert authorities to the fraud they're seeing. They were hearing from people who had been trying to contact the Attorney General's office for years and never got a call back. So now they have a place to send their tips to. We also have some exciting fraud prevention legislation. We have a legislative session just around the corner. The OIG, Office of Inspector General bill, will return. So maybe that'll make it through the House this time. I'm optimistic. And of course, we have the U.S. House Committee on Government Oversight and Reform, where we had Reps Walter Hudson, Kristen Robbins, and Marion Rarick all testifying just a week or two ago. American Experiment's own Bill Glahn was also in the room. Sorry, she's gonna fire me. You can't see our Bill Glahn. He's one of the bald heads in the back. He was there, supporting. And Rep Robbins was in D.C. again this week, testifying before a Senate committee. But there is so much more coming. I cannot emphasize that enough. We are still just scratching the tip of the iceberg when it comes to Minnesota's fraud and rooting out everything that has gone wrong in this state. Governor Walz and Keith Ellison will be testifying in D.C. on Capitol Hill in just a few weeks on March 4th. That is going to be a congressional hearing to tune into. We've also heard that Jody Harpstead, former commissioner of DHS, who left last year, has been subpoenaed. And that is going to be, again, if you're watching for news, those are two to watch for.
Do you have any idea how much Walz is charged the state for lawyers before he goes before the
Oh my goodness. I hope he's not charging us another dime, but I can't promise that. Last time you went to Capitol Hill, you're right, that was an expensive legal bill that we paid for.
$400,000.
Yeah, I think it was 400,000. Is that right? Yeah.
Yes, 430,000 to be exact. The point here, of course, is that there is so much more coming down the pipeline. Even with all of the resignations happening at the U.S. Attorney's Office, everyone's replaceable, and they are not going to skip a beat in terms of rooting out the fraud that has hit Minnesota. We have put together a website called mnfraudfiles.com. It's mnfraudfiles.com. And it pulls together all of the resources that we have collected investigating fraud in Minnesota over the last several years. We'll be linking to all of the relevant testimonies and congressional hearings and the highlight reels that will be coming out in the next few weeks. So I would really encourage you to go to this website and check it out for yourself, because it's going to be an invaluable resource.
It was also designed by Grace herself. It's kind of nice, isn't it? Good job, Grace. You can click right on the people's faces and see how they were involved in the fraud. I love that.
It's pretty fun.
Right on the face. I also want to say one other thing, because I do think it's important when we hear from candidates, people running for governor. What what are you going to do about the fraud? Well, it's hard because there's already laws against what everyone's doing, right? I mean, you can't commit fraud. So what are they going to do? I think the main thing that we need to be making sure that our candidates and the people that we elect are going to do is change the culture in these agencies, because there is a culture of fraud that exists through all of these state agencies. And that's not an easy thing to change. It'll take a long time. But people also criticize, you know, the House Fraud Committee for not doing much, and I completely disagree. I think pulling out the bureaucrats that are in these committees and putting them on the stand, essentially, and saying, what are you doing about this, is valuable, because that's what needs to change, what's happening amongst the bureaucrat class in Minnesota. So as we hear from candidates, thank you so much, the ones who are here tonight, that's something that I would think about asking them.
And appointing commissioners.
And appointing commissioners, that's correct.
They want to appoint these commissioners. They run the state government.
Yeah. Amen. Well, thank you again for listening to us tonight. Again, go to AmericanExperiment.org or MN Fraud Files to see more, and check out the American Experiment podcast. Thank you.
And if you don't get our magazine, we have a ton of copies up here. Come grab it. It is free while you're here today, and it's got tons of other good information. So thank you, guys.
And how do we hear?
And for $35 a year, you can get it 4 times.
Yes, for $35 a year, you can get it to your mailbox 4 times a year. Is it worth it, sir?
Absolutely.
He says absolutely. Thank you. I didn't even pay him to say that. We are on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, American Experiment Podcast. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Love it. It's always quality work out of the American Experiment. I'm throwing things around.
I'm learning a lot right
Senator Koran, would you like to give us a real quick update here on fraud?
Sure, thanks, Mary and Grace and Catherine. We need to do a podcast because they did a great job of covering the high level. Yeah. But in all of the information, when they talked about Scott Stillman, one of our original whistleblowers in 2017-18, not only did they get rid of that office, they destroyed all the equipment and the information that he had collected up to that point.
Evidence.
Well, you know, to prosecute fraud.
Oh, yeah.
And then I think, Catherine, you mentioned the fraud got so bad, the 30 people who reported were, and I'm reporting out of the Office of the Legislative Auditor's report, is those were 30 business and property owners who owned the buildings for which they claimed there was a business in there. Well, one was a city park, by the way. And so they gave that complaint to the Minnesota Department of Education because it was ran out of that program. And guess where they sent those complaints to be resolved? To Amy Bach. So Amy Bach, the head of one of the partners, one of the nonprofits, Feeding Our Future was one component, and then Partners in Nutrition was another. And so I think the total dollars up being prosecuted is near $330 million. But they can hardly prove that any of the $500 million went to feed any children that reside in Minnesota, except for the families of the thieves and the hotels that they bought and everything else around the world. So there's so much more to all of those, to those pieces. But I just want to talk about a couple things. The fraud is pervasive, and we're going to continue work. I've served on, if you guys heard me before, I serve on the Legislative Audit Commission, and so we have an Office of the Legislative Auditor in Minnesota that goes and does all of those audits. It's the only eyes and ears that you have as citizens and we have as the legislature that goes in and has the authority to go and investigate all of the agencies and executive body and across the board. And every single report they put out validates what's been done. And so anybody know who the Office of the Legislative Auditor is? Ever heard of it? Couple. You ever heard of state auditor? Yeah. Who do they audit? Nobody. Municipal government. So I've been blessed because to be on that Legislative Audit Commission. I've been either the chair or the vice chair and a member of it since my freshman year, way back in 2017. And so they've done great work, and I've worked really hard to make sure that they have great support. But the one report that just came out, I think 3 weeks ago we heard it,
and it's an amazing, the timing on it's perfect because it encapsulates literally everything that's enabled all of the fraud almost in every single program. Every single common thing, except in this one, they actually caught them cheating. So they caught state agencies cheating in management of a program. They created documents and they falsified documents after the audit started. And so they had suspected it and they did multiple things to validate that, multiple ways to validate that. So that was in Department of Human Services, Board of Behavioral Health. Did anybody see the whistleblower that came out? Faye, she came out in 2019. She works in the Board of Behavioral Health Administration. So mental health services and addiction services. The audit period covered $425 million, and the same theme came across it. One of the samples is, you have to go do a site visit once during the grant period. Of the 67 samples they picked out, they only had documentation that they did everything except, or all of them except 27 of them, they didn't have any information of doing a site visit. But what they didn't highlight is all the site visits they did them remotely. So essentially zero. Essentially zero. So what they then did is they did eight on their own, the Office of the Legislative Auditor. They did something I wouldn't have done because I'm not that nice. They gave them 24 hours notice, and when they showed up, and they're there for multiple hours, right, trying to request information, documentation, all of those things. They didn't see us, and these are facilities that actually they provide services in those facilities, right? Many of them you see out there, even in the Nick Shirley videos, they don't provide services in many of those facilities. In this case, they do. They didn't see a single person, not a single one. But what's interesting, in the number one of those nonprofits received $1.6 million. In the first month billing period, the behavioral health manager approved a $672,000 invoice, 1 month invoice, with zero documentation. Zero. That person also then quit a few days later. Can you guess where they're employed now? At that nonprofit, as a consultant. So then the other half of that funding was they had 14 individual contracts or consultants. Each one of them received $40,000. Each one of their services is listed as being drastically different services, but they all had the same billing rates, which just doesn't happen. So cut, copy, and paste, create a new story, it's fraud. And then all of them, one of them didn't even have an address, right? No address, no nothing. So complete fraud, and that was just one sample, but it encapsulates everything that we've talked about. They just aren't doing their basic job. The Office of the Inspector General that we talked about, I was part of that team. We had Michael Koran carry it because he needs it. I don't, to win in my district. And so he was our Senate chief person. But we worked every single week through the entire legislative session. There was 25 of us, Republican, Democrat, House, Senate, nonpartisan, legal, partisan, legal. Then every Friday, me and Steve Truskowski, Cal Barr, we met with the Office of the Inspector Generals around the country to create the best solution possible. It's good, but it doesn't solve fraud, right? That allows you to prosecute it for those that slip through when the agencies fail to perform. We still need them to perform at the highest level, and they refuse to do it because they cannot live without these dollars in St. Paul, Minneapolis. It's funding their campaign apparatus. Yep. They can't do what's right and fix it and continue to pander to those populations. So I'll leave you with this. We got a short period of time. The good news is I'll be testing in the U.S. Senate, Josh Hawley's Homeland Security Committee on Tuesday at 2:30 p.m., which is great. So I think I'm the only one testifying. But I did get good information. Any of you guys follow Al Travis? Okay. Al Travis. Oh, yeah. Al Travis does a radio show, covers western Minnesota, southwest. I'm on there every 2 weeks. But he sent me a great video. He pre-recorded a video that will be released tomorrow during his show, one of the pre-recorded segments. But it was of the Department of Human Services at the national level, Office of the General Counsel. Of all Department of Human Services, NIH, you name it, those are all of the clients. His name is Mike Stewart. You will be very, very happy to understand what his background is and his articulation of what's happened in Minnesota and how he's going to hold those elected accountable. And I think he mentioned perp walk many times. But his background was, at least a couple of them, I think he prosecuted multiple Supreme Court justices, Republican and Democrat, where he was from. And so he said, I don't care, fraud is fraud. He has 700 attorneys. Minnesota is his top priority. He went back to the Carolyn Ham from 2017-18. She was the Inspector General from the Department of Human Services, which was created in 2011 in Department of Human Services because of fraud that came up back then. And I'll give you a tidbit with Carolyn Ham too. But he was well aware of all of those things. And Carolyn Ham, the chief of the inspector, she was the Inspector General. In 2017-18, when that fraud came up, and it was purported to be $100 million of fraud, at that time the whole program was $130 million. Okay? And that's Scott Stillman and all the numbers. But on the Saturday before the Monday when they were going to go public with their release that this investigation into these fraudulent investigations into the child care assistance program, they met with the very community they were investigating to coordinate messaging. That culture and ideology hasn't changed one bit. The expansion of the programs has only grown rapidly and more intense, but it hasn't changed. And so we've got to remember, Governor Dayton, the ideology was very prevalent. It's only grossly expanded. It won't change with any Democrat leadership in this state. So thank you, everybody.
Thanks, We'll be wrapping up here soon, but I want to introduce Tad Jude, that is running for Secretary of State. Hi, Tad.
Thank you, Mary. Yeah, Mary, you're doing a great job getting the group together. Senator Koran, Grace, Catherine, you did a good job with American Experiment. And I'm running for Secretary of State to secure the vote, so we can trust the vote and get people to come out and vote this November. We need a clean sweep. We need to take all the constitutional offices. I'm qualified to do it. I've been state senator, state house member, county commissioner, a district court judge in the 10th Judicial District. And what we need to do is we need to basically clean up the voting rolls. And if you look at what's going on in Minnesota, we become the focal point of the whole country. And even in Anoka County, if you go to Columbia Heights, go to Fridley, go to many of the local school districts, you can see the eyes of the country on us. We're having a huge fight over cleaning up the voting rolls. You heard about the bureaucracy we have in Minnesota, and it is incestuous. You know, what we've had over the last 15 years is Governor Dayton, Governor Qualls, they've put in barriers. And Steve Simon, our Secretary of State, has basically stonewalled our Department of Justice getting access to the voting rolls. He has shut down transparency. Now, in Minnesota, you need to be a legal American citizen to vote. You need to live in Minnesota. You need to be 18 years old. Importantly, you need to be alive.
Amen.
And that's what they're looking for. I mean, we have a court case. The Department of Justice is going to court to get access. It's coming up next month in March. You'll read about it. Congressman Emmer put in a bill yesterday that basically says they're not going to fund our voting system until they give us open access to the voting rolls. And that'll come up in the U.S. House. They also have the SAVE Act. Okay, the SAVE Act has passed the House. It hasn't passed the Senate yet. What is it? It requires photo ID to go vote. I'm all for that Steve Simonism. And it requires that you be a U.S. citizen to vote. I'm for that. There isn't a good way to show that in Minnesota. It isn't on your driver's license. We need to put that on the driver's license. We need to have an address when you go vote to register to vote. That's what I'll fight for as Secretary of State. Now, beyond that, I still can't get over the special project Steve Simon has had. This is Steve Simon's special project. I don't understand it. This represents our way of life. This represents our history. It represents our natural resources. It's a credit to the Native Americans. It's a credit to anybody who works with their hands. We're going to have a vote on it. And that's something the public can discuss. They can vote on. I'm for that. Steve Simon hasn't been. Beyond that, I want to bring transparency to the back of the ballot. We have a blind part of the ballot where you go vote on judges. Now, we've had 15 years of Governor Dayton, Governor Qualls appointing judges to the courts. There has been no balance in that whole process. It's supposed to be the ballot box. I will bring meaning back to the back of the ballot, and we need to do that just to hold some accountability in our judicial system. That's something I'm qualified to work on. I will work on. I appreciate your help. I've got a website, padjude.com. Please go there. We have a petition on the state flag if you want to sign it over here. But thank you very much.
We have such good candidates, don't we? I will say that when you start looking at candidates, and there is a frame out there that's got a list of all the websites of the different people running for all these offices, I don't know what's important to you, but I take a look at who's honoring the endorsement. Is that important to you? Yes. Make sure you know. How about pro-life? Is that important to you? Yes. Rather than pro-choice? Make sure you know. And I'm warning you all. I'm asking you for a reason. Make sure you know. If that's important to you, make sure you're voting for that person. How about pro-ICE and securing the border? Yes. Make sure you know what your candidate is saying about that. What else? Affordability? That's important to the younger generation. Who's talking about that? When the people promise you that they're going to do something, is that really within their jurisdiction of the office? Now, I'm not talking or picking on anybody. I'm just saying, you know, governors cannot legislate, but they can pick commissioners. They have the power to audit departments. Know what your county auditor actually does. Know who you're voting for. Would you like to hear from somebody that went to a Democrat caucus on Tuesday night? Don Wolf, come on up. You got a couple of minutes. Tell us, what do the Democrats talk about, if anything?
Oh, that's going to be tough.
Okay, thank you, Mary. So I was at this meeting last month, and it's like, I know what's going on, I know the chaos, and I know what we stand for.
Can't hear you.
Oh, is that better?
Yeah.
Is that better? So I thought, what better way to do this than go to a DFL caucus? So I thought, yep, I'm going to do that. So I went Tuesday night, and I felt very, very uncomfortable because you could just feel the hate. And, tried talking to people. People were not talking about immigration. They weren't talking about fraud. They weren't talking about health care. They were talking about walking their dogs, where they lived in the neighborhood. That was it. I tried telling them about what's going on in my neighborhood. They'd say, well, that's really unfortunate that that's happening to you. And it's like, come on, people. So even the John Marty, he was the only one that brought up health care. It's really not health care, it's sick care. Our system is designed to keep people sick, keep people toxic. He says, well, we want to change it. It's like, it's not that simple. You got to be honest with people. So I started telling them some facts about, in an hour that we've been here, Americans consume 42 million pills in an hour. Americans consume 75% of all drugs manufactured in the world. We have 5% of the population. He was kind of stunned because he didn't know any of that. I said, you know, you need to start being and talking honest with the people in our district. So, to make a long story short then, while I was talking to him, then Kelly Moeller came in. And I was talking to him, so I pulled her out. And I started asking her about, you know, the health care and men and women's sports. No comment. Silence. Or the gender-affirming care for kids in schools and how they are doing this without telling their parents. Silence. Nothing. And it's like, we're using public and federal money to do this? And how can you not stand up for the people? Nothing. And it got to the point where all of a sudden, she must have got very uncomfortable because I started talking about ICE. And for me, I fully support them, and it's like, well, you know what? If you didn't come across the border legally, you're here illegally, and let's see, if you're getting federal aid of any kind, I mean, that's a crime. So why wouldn't you take the $2,600, free flight home, and just kind of go that way? So what I mentioned to her is like, well, so I know what the ICE agents can do. Why? Because I went to United States Code, Title 8. It's got 16 chapters in it. I think it's over 300 sections. I spent 4 hours at the library, and I went through this thing. And I printed PDFs, and I sent them to my email. So now, when she said, you know, ICE agents can't be in this school, I said, you know, per United States Code Title 8, they don't need warrants to come into this school. This is public property. She couldn't get away from me fast enough. And, you know, this was, I went to Amy Klobuchar's, Angie Craig. I went to her table. And I started asking the gentleman, I says, well, if you have a daughter, and she's in a vault on a vault team, and there's a transgender person on the team, are you going to be comfortable with your daughter with this guy coming into the locker room? He said, well, you know, he didn't have an answer. He said, well, how does Angie Craig think? She said, well, I'll have to write this down and see what she thinks. No answers. And it's like, people, what's wrong? Don't you care about your kids, the community? And then I brought up the issue of our education. Since 2019, I said, do you know that, you know, we got one of the lowest education rates as far as comprehension in the country? And Kelly said, well, this is because Donald Trump and ICE are keeping the kids at home because they're too scared. So she said, this is why our kids can't read. And I said, you know, I didn't say anything because now she's getting even more uncomfortable and just trying to get away from me. Because it's like I'm calling her out. Because it's like I know what's happened since 2019 with our education system.
Oh, since the 60s.
Well, it's been more since, you know, Tim Walz got elected in 2019. So I know everybody wants to get going, but I got one more fact that I learned today. In let's see, academic achievement. 2023, 78 schools were 0 students in at least one grade level were proficient at reading and math. In 78 schools, there wasn't one child that was proficient in math in all grades. What happened and how are they letting our kids down? Not only that, but then the graduation rate in 2024 was at 84.2%. Seriously? What does that say? It says we are graduating dumb children. And this is why colleges are having to redo their reading programs, because the kids going to college, they can't read. They don't have the comprehensive skills they can read a book and they can't tell you what they just read. This, and it's like, I'm shocked at, it's not a partisan issue. This is an American issue. Yeah. We are Americans. We're Americans before we're Republicans, before we're Democrats. We are Americans.
Amen.
When you're a veteran, sir, you're a veteran. When you went to sign up, did they ask you if you were Democrat or Republican?
No.
When you're on the battlefield, do you look around and say, hey, he's a Democrat, so I'm just going to go over here, and if they kill him, so what?
No, your brother's my heart.
Your brothers. You're Americans first. Americans country. So what's happening? Why are they not, well, at the DFL, we're referred to as them. We're not referred to as Americans. They couldn't even have a conversation with me.
What shirt did you have on?
This one. I had this one on.
John Lewis? Yeah.
Because John Lewis, he stood for what was right.
No, it's one of their heroes.
Color of skin doesn't matter. Religion doesn't matter. Ethnicity doesn't matter. We are Americans. If we don't stand together as Americans, they're going to split our country.
They already have.
And they're doing a very good job.
Did you get elected to be a delegate to the convention?
Well, you know, when they were doing this?
Yes or no?
No. No, I just was there to observe and talk to some of the candidates and find out, what are you running on? And the only one I heard was healthcare. And then I just said, it's broke. You can't fix this. You can't lower the cost. In order to do healthcare, you're going to have to get people involved in changing how they are. Because if we don't change how people eat, it's a moot point. We're going to continue to just pay. We pay about 18.2% of our national growth product on healthcare. It's about $2.2 trillion a year. It's insane. And we spend the most, and we have the worst healthcare in the world. I just read the book, Living Good Daily, by Dr. Living Good. Within that book, he makes some startling statistics. And in there, based on how people in America currently live, 5 out of 6 of us will die, not maybe, 5 of 6 will die of cancer or heart disease. This isn't negotiable. Based on statistics, 5 out of 6 of us will die of one of those two.
And they're caused by metabolic disorders.
Most cancers are caused by sugar.
Yeah, chronic inflammation.
Sugar inflames the cells. Inflamed cells are damaged cells. I didn't believe that until I read this book, and I also got an AARP flyer.
Here we go.
To wear. Okay, I'm way beyond my time, but thank you so much, Mary. And it's like, yes, I was very uncomfortable going to the DFL caucus. I had to go because I had to find out what they are not saying and just how they are. And it's like, we got to stand up and we got to vote and we got to take our state back. We really do.
Were they basically nice to you other than they didn't want to talk to you?
As long as I didn't let them know that I was actually Republican, it's like I just kind of went in and did my own thing. And just kind of superficially talked to civilians.
So they were just very uncomfortable.
Stay quiet. We've got just a little bit more.
Yes, yes. So I was standing there, I was outside the precinct room where my precinct was meeting, and another precinct had let up, and so this girl came up and she was talking to me, and she said, well, did they get through doing some of their business? And I said, nope, they're just in process. And I said, they're just doing some resolutions for the state of Minnesota as far as environment. And they were talking about the mining up in the boundary waters.
Everybody,
So thank you so much
side
for listening.
topics have to come down. We hear everything up here, so it'll be just a few more minutes. Thanks.
So thank you, Mary, and thank you so much.
I just met Don Wolf, so I think you just established yourself as a new little local leader. This is how easy it is. You just have to have a passion. Couple more announcements. Please keep the side conversations down until we're done. Thank you. Lindell, you got 1 minute. 1 minute.
I put little flyers on your tables. It's about a return to law and order. It's a fundraiser for SD 51. That's my district, the east half of Bloomington. We are going to have an excellent speaker. He is Richard Stanek, who was the sheriff of Hennepin County for years. He has an excellent history in law enforcement. He is going to come and talk and let us know the things that probably you don't know, because I didn't know, which that's no big deal. What is it that a sheriff can do? What is it that a police officer can do? What is it that the federal government can do? And where are the lines in between them? Because we're all wondering what the hell went on in Hennepin County, in Minneapolis. Come to this, you are going to learn stuff, so when your neighbors say, well, you didn't do that, or you didn't do that, you can tell them, well, the police can't do this, and the sheriff can't do that. So it's knowledge that's power. He's a great guy. He's going to come and talk for an hour, and then there'll be Q&A. It's in Bloomington. The date is really small in that thing I gave you, because I did them quick. February 26th, that's a Thursday, 8 p.m. in Edina on France. If you look me up, I'll answer any questions.
He's also a former state house representative and a former state commissioner. Very well.
Well, he's also on a national board.
Yeah, so Stanek ran for governor. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome. Okay, Travis Ebaum, where are you? Yeah, way in the back. That's all right. I've got poll results you're not going to want to leave, and I got to tell you about next month because it just keeps getting better. Better, better, better. Travis, tell us about how we're going to celebrate.
Okay, my name is Travis Ebaum. I am the president of a 501c3 nonprofit called MNUSA 250. Some of the tables had sheets out on there. That's MNUSA 250. You can go to our website, mnusa250.org, to learn more and to donate. A little bit about us and why we're doing this. How many people in here, quick show of hands, have ever heard the name Paulo Freire? Okay, not surprising, nobody raised their hand. Paulo Freire is the most widely cited author in America's schools of education. He was a South American communist, and he identified education as effectively being a factory of cultural production. If you want to know why our schools have 0% proficiency in reading and 0% proficiency in math, but the students will walk out, it is because Paulo Freire's theory of education, his pedagogy of the oppressed, is how every school in America effectively operates. The thesis, education reproduces an existing culture. All existing cultures contain oppression. Therefore, all education is a form of oppression, and a liberating education will be something that only teaches you to tear apart existing societies. So, MNUSA 250 is relevant to this because what we are doing for America's 250th anniversary this year is producing and distributing materials that affirm American culture and American identity into Minnesota classrooms. We're going to be having a huge fundraiser opportunity here. we have produced large, like 5-foot-tall copies of the Declaration of Independence. And we're going to be selling those to county fairs, churches, anybody who's interested. Sorry? BPOUs, anybody who's interested in buying those. It's going to be a great tactile environmental sensation thing for kids, especially so that they can go up and sign the Declaration of Independence themselves. Gives them something to engage with, something to enrich the experience with. Like I said, it's tactile, so it sticks with them. And then they're going to be more prompted to ask questions, be curious, and learn more about their American identity. So that's coming up. We're going to be selling those kits for about $250, but there's going to be a 17.76% discount. So it comes out to being about $204, I think, total. So check the website. You can get in contact with me through that, and I'm sure I'll be back to talk more about it. Like I said, if you're a member of a church or if you're on a local community that's organizing anything for the 4th of July this year, or a county fair board, you're exactly who we're going to be selling those things to. So thank you very much, and I'm sure we all want to hear Mary's poll results here. So.
But I'm going to take his deal and go even further for BPOUs. I've got a couple additional things that are going to be added to it, so you can go and create your own event at any moment with all this. So this is really a good way, because wherever there's kids, there's adults. And adults vote, don't they? So that's what we're trying to do. All right. I'm going to make you wait for a minute. I'm going to tell you about next month's meeting on March 5th. We have the main speaker. How many of you remember litigator Doug Wardlow? Yeah. He's done a lot of things. He was chief counsel for Mike Lindell. He started out being a Tea Party Patriot guy out in Burnsville. His father, Lynn Wardlow, is a former state legislator. But Doug got going with the Tea Party, had a group out there in Burnsville for many years. He went on to do some great litigation work. Back in 2018, he decided to run for Attorney General. Remember that? He talked about the Somali daycare fraud back in 2018. So he's going to come back on March 5th and talk about that. He's going to talk about the city's church invasion. He's the lead counsel on that. He's going to talk about Walz's transgender ideology. And he's been working for many years to invalidate men and women's sports. So we'll see Doug again. He'll be back. He's been very involved, and he's a very, very good attorney. I could tell you more, but I won't right now anyway. I'll tell you more in my emails. Everybody get the emails? Are they coming through? Okay. I try not to overload your inbox. I might possibly have the Mille Lacs County Sheriff, Kyle Burton. Any of you from Mille Lacs? He's actually been sued by Keith Ellison. He's a good guy. I might have him too. We'll talk more about the MNUSA 250 and our kits. And we have Michelle Tafoya for U.S. Senate coming on March 5th. Okay, I am going to announce the gubernatorial candidates, so if nobody wants to hear them, now's when you're going to go. You did not come out on top again. No, I'm sorry. Oh, top down? Should I do bottom up?
Bottom up.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I will. I know how to do this. I've been around a while. Peggy Bennett got 1 vote. Jeff Johnson got 1 vote. There were about 104 total votes. I don't know how many are here tonight, but 104 took part in this. Patrick Knight received 2 votes. Brad Kohler, 2 votes. Undecided was in the 6th spot with 3. 3 of you are undecided, and that's perfectly okay at this point. Kristen Robbins had 5 votes. Mike Lindell had 10. Phill Parish had 14. We did quite well here tonight. Lisa DeMuth had 20. Kendall Qualls had 44. I'm going to share this with the candidates. I thought that the Tea Party was a good cross-section, and I'm so glad that you all participated in it. And that's all I have for you tonight. I just want to say thanks so much again for being with us. This is so important that we stay unified and stay informed and get correct information. We'll see you on March 5th. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Mary.